knew from the first time I stayed for a long time, 'cause I like me better when I'm with you.
Hello everybody, good evening and welcome into Dog Zone. On tonight's show, it's all about the Central Districts. We look back on Friday and the running of the Group 1 Spion Rose, and we also look forward to Manawatu on Monday and heats of the Nancy Cobain Memorial over the 660 metre trip. It fits that we have Mark Rosanowski on the show to go over all of this with us. Rozo, good evening to you. Friday certainly was an epic night. PB Freeman at his personal best.
Yes, that's Paul Freeman you're talking about, obviously, who at the moment is working with the Wanganui Greyhound Racing Club, and he's been president of the Palmerston North Greyhound Racing Club for a wee while, and certainly him and the club certainly pulled together a really good night, managed to get some extra funding for the races so that we got $5,000 into all of the grade races, making them well worth travelling for, and we got a lot of travelling trainers. I think there were 16, 17 travelling trainers there at Hattrick, and that made for a very special night. Andy shared it, of course, the commentary box with you, with Matt Gardner. We had Brian Martin back as well, and Jason Lincoln over from Sky Racing Channel. Well, I deliberately haven't worn product in my hair tonight because of Jason Lincoln. It was terrific to work with him. He's a thorough professional and he knows greyhound racing and punting extremely well. But the first words he ever said to me, and I've never been greeted in this manner before, here he is, the man who wears no product in his hair. Might have to do something about that in the new year, Andy. That could be a resolution.
It certainly could be. We have seen you wear product on a couple of occasions. It's an outstanding look on you too, Rozo.
Yeah, well, you know, and you know, it's only a matter of time before the toupee is required, so.
Right, let's move on now and have a look at some of the action out of Friday night, including the Group 1 Spion Rose, the XL Therapy Spion Rose taken out by Hazel Shine, the reserve in Rug 9.
Racing Spring Falcon awkward early Dana Dave Fair. Big time motion to lead. M Grand Park gets forward. Hey Fernando the inside and Hazel Shine. Followed then by Thrilling Vice, who came out and cannoned into there. Dana Dave gets knocked back to last. Spring Falcon goes just ahead of it and Go Vegas just ahead of those. Big time motion by a couple. Hazel Shine strides forward. Then Hey Fernando, M Grand Park. Spring Falcon trying to look for clear air. Around the outside, Thrilling Vice. Dana Dave can't do it and Go Vegas to the corner. Hazel Shine grabs the lead off Ocean Park. M Grand Park, Leighton Spring Falcon. Hazel Shine is in. From
Sam, you've got a Group 1 in the bag, mate. You must be pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped, mate. Especially we had the punt on too.
Oh, that makes it even better. He's a greyhound you haven't had for long. Gee, the future's bright.
He is. He's got a serious motor, this dog. I was slightly worried his preparation for this was pretty rushed, really. I think he can improve off this run, really, but he's got a serious motor.
Talk us through the run. He got to second, chasing a relatively weak type in front of him. You must have been fairly confident.
Yeah, I was just hoping Donna Dave was too far back for him. No, yeah, he's a serious dog, this dog.
How did you get your hands on him?
Punters HQ helped me out with this one. Looking out for a serious dog after we lost Shooters Hill, and he's replaced Shooters Hill.
What does it mean to you? You got all the family on course here as well to celebrate your first big victory?
It's just a dream come true. I'm speechless, really. Dream come true.
Future plans for this fellow? Where's he heading now?
He'll have a couple of weeks off. Because of his age, he's not eligible for some races coming up, so he'll probably go around the Waikato Cup, Cambridge, Christmas time, and then on to the Auckland Cup.
Oh, well done, Sam. We'll let you go enjoy the spoils, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was Sam Lizelle with his thoughts around Hazel Shine and Rozo. He's just a young fella. He gets his first Group 1 success, and he's certainly got a pedigree to say that he can train a greyhound.
Well, he has, Andy. I mean, always hark back, don't I, to the archives. But look, I used to thoroughly enjoy the times that Max Matthews came down to Kiwi2 Park back in the day with dogs like Cutie's sister and Miss Cutie, of course, herself. And he was just a man with an extraordinary knowledge of greyhound racing, and he passed a tie on to me that I was able to pull out of the bag on Friday night after Hazel Shine won for Sam Lizelle, who's been, he's grown up with greyhound racing. Of course, he spent a good amount of time at the Coal Kennels as well, Andy, and Ironically enough, Big Time Ocean running second in the race for the Cole Kennels. And just on that, I should be wearing a Waikato stud cap, Andy, because people may have heard reference to the 2012 Cox Plate winner Ocean Park and the call up the straight, a combination of Big Time Ocean and M Grand Park and a desperate finish with Spring Falcon for the Miners. But just a tremendous occasion to see a young man like Sam Lizelle, his young family, and the Racing Canine Syndicate, and they brought the dog through the stand on Friday night and put money on the bar. So it became a very popular win, more popular than an $11 win probably normally would be. Andy, let's have a look at the race though, and I'm sure there'll be a few dogs you want to have a look at here, most notably Spring Falcon, the 3, and Dinah Dave in the gold, who's about to get a bad check first bend.
Yeah, things went bad for the Southerners very early on. Obviously, Spring Falcon copping a little bit of trouble into the just straight off the boxes, and Dinah Dave copping a big check as he went into the first turn, which put them out of the race. Rosso, you can't take anything away from the winner. He was too good for them on the day, but gee, the third dog, Spring Falcon, he's been massive. He checks off heels at this point as well, and gee, rock and rolls late in the piece. He's a dog with a very, very bright future as well.
Oh, the back end of his race is amazing, as is Dinah Dave. There might have been a bit of jamming up after the line, but Dinah Dave was actually comfortably clear to the lure. But we know that Spring Falcon's strong as an ox to the lure. And coming to that first bend there, Andy, I thought if Go Vegas had been able to hold Thrilling Vice in, then Dinah Dave would have got a gorgeous run. But fine performances from a number of dogs. Good to hear Joe Lanuti, friend of the show, involved in getting this dog for Sam Lizelle and going so close in the Silver Collar with Shooters Hill. Couldn't quite get to Dinah Wesleyan, and then they lost Shooters Hill, as Sam referred to. So that's it's just tremendous that they could have a redemption story like this so soon after this dog just having his second start in this country and coming in off the ballot with Thrilling Talk having to be scratched, which was a shame obviously for Karen, who then had no luck with Thrilling Vice in the race. But in behind, Andy, as you say, Ocean Park, tiny little girl, turns 2 in January, and she was enormous, hanging in there for second. I thought the bigger dogs had got to her at the line, but she hung in there for second by a snout. Spring Falcon, enormous future and probably over ground. Dinah Dave, you could almost argue the same. Now, Craig Roberts was tempted to put him in the Nancy Cobain heats over 660 on Monday, Andy, but he's actually opted for a local Group 2, same money, Colin Keane Memorial heats on Tuesday down there at Forbury Park, where Oster Bale will go too. He won on the undercard quite impressively. So a lot of good runs in behind. M Grand Park, I think, worthy of mention there too, because he very nearly got on the podium.
Yeah, he certainly was good, M Grand Park, from a draw that doesn't suit him, and he's another dog who makes his way through to the Nancy Cobain heats on Monday, and he'll have to be some sort of chance going around in that as well, as we get another look at that head on there, and Spring Falcon just copping all sorts of carnage in the early part. Well, that was the first of 2 main features we had at Friday at Hattrick Raceway. The second of them, of course, was the Dash for Cash, this one taken out by Trojan Horse, the gold rug of box number 5.
Racing Buddy Boom is slow, and Sir Dougie is slow as well, and Trojan Horse fires out to the lead here, pushing up the inside as Floridora. Sir Dougie trying to circle him up around the outside, driving up the middle. Buddy Boom with good strides to come after Trojan Horse now. Also driving into the race was Cheese and Chalk. Getting back in the race here, Big Time Shine, Floridora and Kiwi Boy. Trojan Horse is in from Buddy Boom. Third to go by then was Cheese and Chalk, followed across then by Big Time Shine.
So that was Trojan Horse victorious in the Wanganui Toyota Dash for Cash. Rosso, a greyhound who we were pretty keen on in the futures market when he drew box 1 in the heat, but drawing box 5 in the final, I think we both sort of played against him a little bit, but gee, he took bad luck out of the equation from a very, very early stage of that race.
It was an interesting start, wasn't it, Andy, with Buddy Boom, one of the slowest away, and then Sir Dougie sort of scrambling across the mat as well. So they seemed to be out of play initially. Look at the 4 slow, the 8 slow, and Trojan Horse gets to the front. And we're talking about a dog here who has won twice at Group 1 level over the middle distances, the New Zealand Derby and also the New Zealand Breeders' Stakes on this track over the 520 metres. Andy, a few months ago we talked about this dog, and the wheels or the legs seem to have fallen off him. And Brendan Cole freshened him up, talked to owner Craig Rendell, and said, look, I think we're going to have a crack at the Galaxy Sprint with him. Now, they got him into the final. Of course, the final was extremely rough and he never really got his opportunity. And he got his opportunity in the Dash for Cash, and he's taken full advantage. So now he becomes a Group 2 Sprint winner. He's been in a Group 1 sprint final. He's got the Derby and the Breeders in the bag. He didn't have a lot of racing for a middle distance dog in that season, so that freshen up and reverting to sprinting has rejuvenated his career, if you like, and he's still got a lot ahead of him. I spoke with Brendan Cole about him because I would have thought maybe they'd have to be tempted by the Hat-Trick Classic next month back to the 520 metres. And it's a possibility, Andy, and a possibility only. On Friday, there's a sprint race where Trojan Horse is drawn next door to Sir Dougie. Cheese and Chalk, the brother who ran third, is in there as well, and Big Time Shine as well, who was in that final too. So that'll be a cracking sprint. It's race number 6 on Friday night at Hat-Trick.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolute beauty. There's no doubt about that. Rozzo, just on some of the beaten runners, Buddy Boom, he's a Boom youngster, and he was good in second after missing the start.
He was stunning. He'd lose no admirers there, Buddy, off that beginning and able to be explosive and put himself back into the race. I mean, things worked out for that to occur, but he also thought about it too, and he managed to duck underneath Floridora, who came away from the rail. Big Time Shine was back and made ground solidly. She's in on Friday, obviously, as I mentioned. She's drawn off the rail a bit, which will help, and she's in on Monday at Manawatu up against Big Time Kiss, which will be quite a fascinating contest too. And as for Sir Dougie, Andy, well, it was just unfortunate on the night. The draw looked good for him, didn't it? Brendan Cole saying, look, he came through the race well. Obviously, he's a bit of a day-to-day proposition, but he's very happy with the way he's holding together, and yep, he could rip off some more 670 opening sectionals yet.
Certainly has it in him. Just picked the wrong day to miss away, didn't he, old Dougie? And favourite or second favourite backers were gone basically as soon as the boxes opened, but can't take anything away from the winner there in Trojan Horse. Also on the night we had a New Zealand Racing Series distance event, this one up and over the 755 metres. The Southerners dominating it. Classy Witch had box number 3. She wasn't the most favoured of the Southerners, but she was able to get herself into a nice position early. Rozzo, the race looked hers a long way from home, to be fair. We know how strong she is, and the favourite Opawa Hillary blowing the start and copping a check just past the post was, yeah, you were in trouble with the $1.40 at box rise.
Well, she was game in defeat, and for the Punters Club and Jason Lincoln, we got him over from Australia and put him straight in the deep end to try and make us some money, and he had plenty of units going on place 6, which he managed to land for us with Opawa Hillary, and for a while there it was looking a bit grim, but Classy Witch ran second in this race last year, and she was a bit unlucky. I didn't think she quite did enough in the 6:45 the week before to say she could beat Opawa Hillary, but the way things worked out, and then with Hillary trying to get back into that race and get that check, as you mentioned there, just inside a lap out, Classy Witch was able to hang in there and win. And I've got to say, Andy, I was wrapped for Gary Cleve and Galen Turnbull because they attacked the money, they attacked the series, they brought their dogs up, and they've got some really, really talented dogs, as they just about always have. But they'd had no luck at all. And of course, they had to scratch pills for us out of the Oaks, which was a great shame on Friday. So I was delighted that they had some, I say, good fortune here, Andy, and that Opawa Hillary didn't run the race we kind of thought from the front. But Classy Witch is a worthy stayer. I mean, we've got to remember she was in the Duke of Edinburgh Silver Collar final, and generally she looks best probably at Forbury Park. Really nice to see her get this win.
Yeah, it certainly is nice to see her get a well-deserved win. She's a pretty talented type, Classy Witch. We don't always see the best of her, but when she puts her best paw forward, she's good. Gold Star Sydney, another honest performance from her, finishing into third and another minor placing in a decent enough 700-metre event for her. So the Southerners certainly dominating things there, and Aileen getting home late in the piece as she is wanting to do. Fourth place for her. Right, also on the night we had a couple of restricted age features. The first of them, the Derby. This one taken out again by the Southerners, Opawa Toddy, the gold rug of box number 5. Rozzo, he's a greyhound who, as soon as we saw his name, we knew he must have been good, and he certainly paid the believers on Friday night, getting home in a pretty handy time there as well of 30 and 10 odd, I think he went.
It was 06, Andy, and Hazel Shine went 05, so he's been right up there with the Spion Rose, and this dog very nearly made the Spion Rose final. He was very, very close to picking up Big Time Ocean, who I keep trying to call Ocean Park. But anyway, he just failed there, and of course Ocean went on to win, or to run second, I should say, in the Spion Rose. So terrific to see Toddy win that. Youth of Bale was pretty good in defeat there as well. Andy, this is a terrific result for the Central Districts. Fifi, in a race where Apawa Nat was the hot favourite, and things went horribly wrong for her early. And so it was left to Kiss in front, Melita Valor and Fifi. None of them you'd say particularly strong at the 520 metres. For Fifi, just her third run over it. She'd had a couple of misses. She runs her sprint races like it should suit, and she got it perfectly right there. The right run, the right race. But Andy, she ran 30.19. It was a tremendous performance. Silver Gym Syndicate, been racing dogs for years and years and years. John MacArthur and Robin MacArthur, just terrific to see them get a win like that with a greyhound. Only 2 middle distance starts, had missed in both of them. But, you could clearly see the talent and ability she had over the middle distance potentially, and they got that out of her on that night, and running a 30.19, a worthy Oaks winner. And it'd be most interesting to see whether they press on now and travel with her and take on a race like the New Zealand Oaks down at Addington, which is always very winnable, I feel, Andy. And just on another potential Oaks candidate, Big Time Brie, the little midget that can, the 22-kilo greyhound, Andy, that ran 30.30 to win the maiden. People may have noticed she was scratched today at Hattrick, and she has come into season.
Just on Fifi as well, talking about a classy type, what about the effort of Matty Gardner, Rozzo? We spoke to him pre-race and he labelled this girl at $31. That's a big old effort from Matty.
It is, and look, he studies very, very intently, and it's tremendous that he got a result like that on the night because he doesn't get to the races that often, and he agreed to come along, call a couple of races and join us in some discussion. He put in the effort and he got the reward there.
He certainly did. Well, on Friday night, as Rozzo said earlier, we had our Australian counterpart over, Jason Lincoln. Rozzo caught up with him while he was there to get a little bit of background around him.
Well, Jason Lincoln, we know you through the catching pen on Sky Racing. So how did you come to be in that?
Well, I came to Sky about 3 years ago, and initially I was doing the trotting show in the gig because prior to coming to Sky I was doing some form analysis and doing markets for a bookmaker in Perth. So, and again, prior to that I was also the form expert for the harness racing panel at Gloucester Park. So I guess in terms of how I kicked off at Sky, it was on in the gig. But with a few departures and whatnot, there was a space for me to move into the catching pen. Look, greyhound racing is my passion, so I was more than happy to move in there. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
Why is it your passion? Do you have a family background in greyhound racing?
Yeah, I do. My grandfather trained for the better part of about 60 years, 65 years, and just a suburban trainer with, a couple of kennels out the back. And I just remember as a kid, there's always at least a dog out the back. No more than a handful by any stretch of the imagination. Old school trainer, walk them every morning, walk them every evening, let them out, feed them the old-fashioned way, train them the old-fashioned way. They still take them to the slipping track and that kind of thing during the week. Whereas these days, I guess, with so much racing, you don't need to trial dogs anymore, do you? You just race them a couple of times a week and keep them fit.
For casual punters who look at the greyhounds and go, third code, lotto on legs, sell it to them. Sell it to them. Why is greyhound racing a good bet?
Well, I think it's, if you want to use a mathematical equation, I think it's actually probably the easiest of the three codes. I think your eye has to be better trained if you're punting on the thoroughbreds and on harness racing. I guess because the times are such an important factor of our game as compared to the other two games. The other two games, it's more run-of-the-race stuff. So you actually need to go back and watch replays, whereas, obviously I watch replays, but because I know the dogs, even if I miss one of their runs, it's not necessarily essential that I go back and look at it. The form guides, especially the detailed ones we get in Australia, that'll tell me whether it's a run I need to go back and really screw down on. But look, once you learn the form and you get a handle on those dogs, I just think it's an easier puzzle to solve, really. And you don't have necessarily the same sort of convergence of form lines, especially let's use Australian horse racing for an example. You bet at the Victorian Spring Carnival, you've got horses coming from Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide, and it's very hard to line up that form unless you've got yourself, some software with a specific ratings tool and that kind of thing. But for me, the dogs, it's easy to pick up and it's easy to maintain that knowledge. And I think there's still holes in the market because I don't think that the price assessors I don't think that they're as accurate with their markets as what they otherwise could be. So you can still find good value.
Jason, you're from New South Wales. Only a matter of a few short years ago, greyhound racing in New South Wales could potentially have been gone. There was going to be a ban on greyhound racing in the state. Now, in the state, there's a $1 million race. How were you feeling back then? What was your level of despair? How are you feeling now?
I guess it was something that was so shocking that it was actually, there was so much disbelief that I actually at first didn't really even take it seriously. I thought, how could this happen? There's no way in the way, no way in the world they'll get this through. Obviously, as time went by, the seriousness of it really had time to sink in. But thankfully, we had the right people on our side, certainly in New South Wales as well. I mean, we had a couple of really heavy hitters in terms of media personalities, people like Alan Jones and Ray Hadley, that got right behind the sport. And look, I think reason just won out in the end. Once the hysteria died down, I think that was a big part of it. I mean, once people saw, the Four Corners expose and that sort of thing, obviously when you initially see it, the hysteria's at a fever pitch. But with time, that sort of quells a little bit, and you can reason with people once the emotions subside a little bit. And I think that's sort of what happened, that people thought, well, there's a lot of good people in the game. We're going to shut down an industry for the sake of, a handful of bad eggs. I mean, we've gone through a banking royal commission in Australia recently where, the same thing happens in the construction industry, happens in the, in the financial markets, but we're not looking to close down, any of these industries because of a few bad people. I view it a little bit differently to a lot of other people in Australia, in as much as I actually think that it was the event we needed to have in many respects. Paul Keating was the Prime Minister in Australia going back 20 or so years ago, and he famously said after a recession that it was the recession we had to have. Well, I think it really rejigged the system. I think welfare is now getting up to a level where it possibly should always have been. I think we did fall asleep at the wheel with a number of things. But having said all that, I still think that there's ground that I'd like to see clawed back. I mean, I think some of the regulations are over the top. Now, whether we can find some common ground, I don't know whether that'll ever be the case, and I don't know whether the powers that be actually want to pursue those things. But I actually, strangely enough, 3 or 4 years on from it now, I actually think it's worked for the betterment of the game.
So there was Jason Lincoln and Rozzo, the Catching Penny is Wednesday 10 p.m. on Trackside One, a show well worth tuning in for, and Jason showing his class on Friday evening. He's obviously not fully across the form of New Zealand greyhound racing, but he was still able to return a profit for the Punters Club, which was a big effort on a tricky night.
It was, with Hot Platter winning the last, Andy, and just get the feeling too, I mean, he was able to offer us really good insight on He's All Shine. He was just having his second start in New Zealand, winning the Spion Rose, but of course he'd been racing in Sydney, and I get the feeling, Andy, that had he drawn in close, if he'd come off the ballot into an inside draw, the Punters Club might have won a fortune there. Jason was obviously worried about the wide draw. Andy, it was terrific to meet Jason, so fantastic for the club, for Paul, to get him across here, and we'll see him again in the new year, I do believe, which is tremendous, and an opportunity to foster relationships. He's clearly very smart around greyhound racing, full stop, and punting and how to make money across the board. Andy, he wears a lot of product in his hair. It looks good, and I will work upon it in the new year just for Jason, but for now, we just have to put up with this.
We can't change Rozzo, can we? We can't change you. You are who you are.
No, you've got to keep evolving, Andy. You've got to keep evolving. Don't want to fall behind.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. What about the perm?
No, that is permanently out of the question.
Nice work, nice work. That's Rozzo at his brilliant best right there. Right, we need to move on now to the Nancy Cobain Memorial Heats, 3 of them to take place at Manawatu on Monday. Here's a look at the futures market for it. This will be option 700, favourite M Grand Park off. One of the heats is $4, Opal Hillary 7, Gem and Hot Platter both at a quote of $9. Rozzo, I thought the $7 around Hillary was good enough. You're not so keen, but you've found one at double figures.
Well, look, Andy, Hillary is a terrific dog. I've got a lot of time for her and her recovery and what she did to run second to Classy, which Friday night was very good. I'll be very interested to see how she goes at Palmerston North. I don't think there's any guarantee. It's 3 heats here. There's not a lot of room for error. I think it's a deep series. But the one that's in her heat the other on Monday is Thrilling Nina. Now she's $10, and you could argue that with her limited experience, that's not enough. And you look at a dog like Mighty Muscle, who was a screaming certainty, beaten on Friday night, that we might get a look at in a moment. At $12 might be a better bet. But look, with Thrilling Nina, Andy, royally bred to stay. And if I had to nominate a dog to win the Silver Collar 2020 right now, it would be Thrilling Nina. This is her in the heat. She's out in box 7. Hillary's in 6. You've got M Grand Rose in 8. It's not an ideal draw for M Grand Rose, but M Grand Park's brother, of course, does have 600 metre form, and you've got Kamada Park in there. Andy, look, we'll just go back and have a look at Thrilling Nina the other night in Class 3 company, because that's her in the green rug, and she's obviously back early, and that can be an issue for her, but she hooks to the outside. And you've got winning this big time Tank, who then won in fast time on Monday. Rivalries, who of course has got an engine. Now watch this, that's Nina in the green going past Max Dancer in the red. Max Dancer ran 5th in the New Zealand Cup and is a very good greyhound who's also in the series. Then Nina comes up, runs down the outside, and by the lure, she's put them to the sword by about 3 lengths. I think she's got an enormous future, Andy, and Karen Walsh is not the sort of person that would put her in generally, or a dog in this early, unless she was absolutely convinced. So I'm going with that. Thrilling Nina in what's going to be a pretty competitive heat, obviously, with a par with Hillary and M Grand Rose in there too.
It certainly looks the most even of the 3 heats. Tradition to chance as well off the inside. He's a greyhound who will certainly see out the 660, and even the local hope there, Kamada Park, has to be some sort of chance as well. So plenty of hopes in heat number 1. Let's move on to heat number 2 on the card on Monday. This will be race number 11 on the card. Hot Platter comes up with box 1. We've got Gem in box 2, who's a relatively big chance for the Southerners. A lot of talk, who's basically impossible to follow, but was close to a certainty beat his last start. No power June off the outside. Hot Platter's the greyhound we're going to take you back to have a look at. This is her winning her last start. She gets the job done here off box number 3. Rosso, this was a good, strong performance. Comes up with the red rug. No immediate speed to her outside, so she should get every opportunity into the first turn.
She should, Andy, but watch Mighty Muscle there. Severely checked. Severely checked. Last, made ground, severely checked. Look where Mighty Muscle is now. Hot Platter up front is a Group 1 place getter over the 755. Thrilling Amigo in front, quality dog. Hot Platter coming, M Grand Rose coming, and look at the black and white check. Phenomenal finish. And one of the best black bookers I think you will ever see. Came out of that not feeling so flash, got a short stand down, that's a slight concern. And Andy, I do want to ask you, when we have a look at race number 3, which is where Mighty Muscle is, just what you think of the dog at Palmerston North. But Hot Platter, box 1, Gem in box 2, look good to qualify, you'd think, in heat number 2 there.
It looks that way. Gem's a pretty promising young stayer. She's got a pretty bright future ahead of her. So from that kind draw, you would expect her to be making her way through. And she's a definite chance of rolling Hot Platter even on heats day. Right, let's move on to the third and final heat. This one will be race number 12 on the card. Student Loan, another youngster having his first go over the journey. Looks a promising type. M Grand Park, Mighty Muscle. This one's a pretty talented field as well. And of course, Max Dancer off the outside. Rosso, thoughts on this? Some pretty promising dogs. Mighty Muscle, as you said, unlucky at that latest performance. He's had one look at a one-bender in the past, runs second at Invercargill. I think the big long straights will suit the greyhound over the 600-metre journey. Plenty of time to get those big legs pumping.
I think worth a look at the $12 futures, or Andy, look at the top 3 market, which is available as well. M Grand Park, we know, is a quality stayer with 650 win at Cambridge in fast time, 645 metre wins in fast time down there at Addington. General strength, and of course just got nosed out in a Group 1 the other day, finishing 4th and nosed out of a placing at least anyway. So I think a worthy favourite for the final on the dog's back doorstep. Andy, one dog I'll say just keep an eye on, Race Me Home. 80 to 1, I don't think can win the series, but I'm pleased to see it back. And let's not forget, ran into some placings in some pretty strong 660 fields. I think might be the one that's under the guard, but I'm thinking more for the future.
Yeah, certainly looks a chance in coming up staying races. The other one's Max Dancer off the 8, 37.82 when winning over the 600 at her last start at Addington. Says she's some kind of chance as well. It's a battle we've got time for here on Dog's Own. Rosso, thanks for joining us. It's certainly all about the CD at the moment, so you must be loving life.
Yep, loving it, Andy. That was a tremendous night of action last Friday, and looking forward to the Nancy Cabane clearly.
We'll be back next week here on Dog Zone with more reviews and previews of greyhound racing from around the country. But until then, happy punting.